Honorable Minister, Dr. Pachauri, Mr. Peter Barker, Dr. Nupa Venkateshwaran, ladies and gentlemen. Listening to Peter Barker and the pictures that he put up after saying that we are not making much movement for the last 20 years, and so the journey that left to us, the time left to us to cover the journey is getting shorter and shorter, and the target that we have to achieve is getting higher and higher. We seem to be stuck and not getting a move on. So the image that was coming to my mind of a vehicle that is stuck in a rut, and we are sitting in the vehicle and saying, no, we've got to get there, we've got to get there, keep moving faster, we've got to get there, but we're not moving at all. Why are we in a rut? Why are we in a rut? I want to make the entry into this discussion today on sustainability and collaboration through the lens of the point of entry of a policy logjam. We are having difficulties in the whole world in the process of economic reforms, as we are here in India. We in India, 3 years ago, as we set out to make our next plan, our 12th plan, determined to listen to India. And as we listened to India, we saw, and you see the pictures that Dr. Peter Barker put out about dry lands and no water and crowds on the streets and unhappiness with lack of jobs, lack of faith in institutions. That's why they're out on the streets. There is, at this moment in the world, and also here in India, a decline and almost collapsing lack of trust, collapsing trust in institutions. And that makes policy making, getting people to move on together, very difficult. The Edelman Trust Barometer, and they publish it every 2 years, the recent findings were published just before Davos this year, said that there are only 26% people in the 26 countries that they survey who trust that business leaders will solve social issues, and only 19% expected businesses to make ethical decisions. Of course, they said that the trust in government was even lower. So we can feel satisfied as business to say, well, they trust us more than they trust them. If it was just an either-or choice, like going for an election, it's okay. I mean, I'm bad, but the alternative is even worse, so I get voted. So if we think that by telling the people of the world that, look, governments are not trustworthy, trust us and let us determine the policies for the world, I think we've got another thought coming. And as you said, we are all talking here as business leaders and friends together. Now, what is the choice before the people? It's between us and our ideas, market ideas, capitalism ideas, and governments. We would like the people to trust us more than governments, or trust us much more. But they don't trust us sufficiently to leave the running of the world and their countries entirely in our hands. So what's the solution to this? There are people, and the world exists, governments exist, and we say more and more in business that we are there to make the lives of people better through the products we provide them, the services we give them. We all exist for citizens and people. So there are people above, and there are governments who have relationships with people, and there's us as corporations. And we too have our relationships with people. And so here are three entities, and I describe this as the triangle of trust. Between the people and the government, there are many processes of the people venting their anger onto governments, and the governments wanting to get the people's confidence, and elections is one of those. And of course, in our country, the right to information directed at government. So there are channels open for people to express their dissatisfaction, open channels about government, and government tries its best to communicate why it should be trusted, perhaps not doing a very good job all over the world. And then we have business and government, and there is need for trust between them, for which they must communicate with each other, listen to each other. And I would say, in our country, we've gone a long way in building those channels, and government and business do consult each other. They work with each other. But there's a third link between the people and business. And the more people see a government which they're trusting less in these deep consultations with business, the other leg here, they wonder what they're doing. What are they talking about? Two institutions that we don't trust getting together. And that's where we talk about crony capitalism. So what's the solution for us? Our solution as business people is not to, I think, spend too much more time in trying to win the trust of government. It is, we must spend time in winning the trust of people. In fact, right now, people from the private sector urge governments to have political will and be tough on the people. Tell the people that markets and capitalism is good for them. Yeah? So we are calling government back into the picture again to be our votaries on our behalf. Whereas on the other hand, we say, well, the country progresses when there's less government. But we, for our needs, which we are not able to fulfill ourselves, of winning the trust, want government to do it for us. Therefore, the business leader's agenda has to be processes of winning the trust of people. This afternoon's speech by the CEO of Lafarge was very inspiring, as he mentioned how for the first 2 years they have established processes of listening to people and dialogues and inviting people and representatives of people, NGOs and others to examine and criticize Lafarge's intentions. I agree with Mr. Barker that the prevalent concept of CSR, the widely practiced concept of CSR needs to be killed. And we need to give birth to a new paradigm of responsibility of business responsibility with the death of CSR. We had here in Delhi 4 years ago or 5 years ago a meeting of civil society, many students from business, teachers of business, and of course business itself and some from government on this subject, a provocative title, The Death of CSR and the Birth of Business Responsibility. And we had case stories so that people could ask, the students and others could ask the tellers of the stories, the business people, what they really were doing and why. There was a big resource company, quite admired for its CSR, a winner of many international awards. And the head of CSR of that company told their story about how much they were spending on schools and hospitals and a variety of things, large amounts of money, millions of dollars. And the other speaker on the panel was a small Indian company called Jaipur Rugs, where the CEO didn't speak very good English, but was describing his company story about how they have created a business model he has in which people's livelihoods are being increased, they're learning new ways of weaving, safer ways of weaving, ways in which the women and the men can weave and the children could be spared the need to weave and to supplement family incomes and starting schools and for girls and boys in the vicinity. So that was this person's business model. Now, all these students, as you can imagine, and all of us were highly inspired by this story. And the head of CSR of this large company was quite upset that she wasn't the star. And so she turned in the panel discussion and asked the head of this company from India, well, how much do you spend on CSR? The person was totally confused. He has no account of what he spends on so-called CSR, because his whole business is a responsible business, improving the lives of people and concerns of the environment at the same time. So which is why I say that measuring CSR by the money that you put into it is really confusing the issue altogether. It's how you do your business and how you make your profits. That is what matters, which is what the Lafarge story this afternoon was about. We need to have collaborations. This is what we say the subject should be for our session today, sustainability through collaborations. We do need partnerships. We have a paradigm which we want to keep pushing, and we should, of PPP, the public, that is the government, the private, that's corporations, in partnership. But some of those partnerships are sort of falling apart because the people are unhappy about the outcomes of those partnerships. So once again, in that triangle, we've got partnerships between these two, but we're forgetting the third essential partner in many of the projects, many of our initiatives. And so we need another paradigm of a P, 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 three Ps and then a P. The people first, public-private partnerships. And in that model, if you make it, well, we need conditions of trust. What are they? I'll just name two conditions for trust. One is a person asking, well, how can I trust that you will not hurt me if you do not even listen and know what my hopes and fears are? So if we haven't heard the people about what their concerns are, we are not going to win their trust and they will not follow the solutions we have. I'm glad that we're talking about water now, because in this discourse about the climate and the environment, a few years ago, it was so much about the carbon in the air, and just to be funny, it was up in the air. And when we got people from Africa and India into those discourses to convince them, the scientists convincing them that, you know, this is happening up there and this is what your lives are going to be 50 years from today, or no life 50 years from today, they said our lives are miserable right now because of no water in the ground. So we got to understand their needs, their fears, and that's where you'll get the discourse unstuck. So to my metaphor of the vehicle that's stuck, you got to get the conversation about what are people concerned about, what are they stuck in. And if you can help them get out what they are stuck in, then we can make this whole vehicle move forward faster. The second is condition for trust. How can I trust you if you do not honestly tell me what you're doing about the things that matter to me? Don't give me an advertising spiel. So in that story about the big CSR and the Jaipur rugs, the people said, I mean, this is all greenwashing and advertising. You want to sell your company and make it look good. What matters to us, the concerns of ours are being expressed by the other person. And he's not spending any time on glossy PowerPoints or advertising his company at all. So the reporting and the GRI and yourselves, WCSS, are doing a good job to focus us on how do we account to people for our actions and the consequences of our actions on their lives and the environment that we commonly all share. So the development of models of accounting and adoption of models of accounting by corporations will be a means to accelerate the increasing confidence that we want to have of people in business. We have so far tried in Michael Porter's earlier work about convincing people that CSR was a good thing to do and philanthropy is good because it produces the return to you in your business. So it was a utilitarian argument. I can show to you that you invested in that, it somehow comes back into your bottom line through some ways. And even the permission to operate is coming back to you and enabling you to make more profits. So that is a utilitarian view of the world. And of course, much of economics is driven by that. But we do need to introduce an ethical view of the world. And business responsibility cannot be seen merely through a utilitarian angle. It has to be seen through an ethical angle. When we talked earlier today and said, well, time is running out, and I'm saying so again, we need accelerators. And I think by putting the accelerator of passion, morality, ethics, along with utilitarian arguments, we can make the world move. Revolutions are not created without passion. So let's, in business, put ethics into our conversations, morality into our discussions, questions of morals into our discussions, and not merely the calculus of returns. Business is part of a larger system, and the needs of the whole system have to be a concern of business. And therefore, business must be a partner, of course, with government, because together we can shape policies. We have resources, both business as well as government, which need to be brought to bear on the concerns of the world. But above all, we need to be in partnership with people also. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am just concluding with a request that we change the tenor of our conversations and the subjects of our conversations to concerns of the system and not the concerns of the part. Listen to others in the system, and they have different languages, they have different concerns. They don't understand our calculus, and we perhaps don't understand theirs. But we've got to listen to each other and thus make partnerships together. Thank you so much.